as you kill a person, it's more of trying to get a.
Throughout history, certain individuals have been deemed so wicked that the FBI would likely have preferred to keep both them and the specifics of their crimes hidden from the public eye. Here are 10 such criminals. Number 1. Jamie Asuna. Jamie Asuna, recognized as the Man with a Thousand Faces, a moniker reflecting his face tattoos like Joker's smile and a pentagram, was condemned to life imprisonment without parole chances for the 2011 slaying of Yvette Pena, a 37-year-old mother to 6, in the El Morocco motel room in Bakersfield, California. This hotel, notorious for its bad neighborhood and illicit activities inside, was where Pena, having fallen on tough times, resided. Although he refuted it for 6 years, Asuna ultimately admitted in a 2017 interview with journalist Olivia Lavoie that he was indeed guilty of her murder. During the interview, he coldly stated, "I did statistically, premeditatively, deliberately torture and kill her." When pressed for reasons, he only said,
And I see an opportunity, no one's there. Met her like one time.
"And I saw an opportunity." He further bragged about killing Pena to have lasting memories of the act. On March 28, 2017, he pleaded guilty, escaping the death penalty. At hearings, he taunted Pena's grieving family by smiling and waving. Asuna's criminal acts continued even in Corcoran State Prison, where he assaulted guards. On March 9, 2019, almost 2 years without a cellmate, 44-year-old Luis Romero was found dead in his cell, with "ha ha ha" and "the Man with a Thousand Faces" scrawled on the walls. Contrary to assumptions, Asuna's mother insisted he was not born an evil killer, but was a normal, loving child. Asuna was later diagnosed with unspecified schizophrenia spectrum, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and PTSD, attributed to his difficult upbringing. Number 2. The River City Ripper. The River City Ripper is another unidentified killer, but this one committed crimes much more recently than the Doodler. The River City Ripper killed 3 people and wounded another between 2020 and 2021 in Little Rock, Arkansas. According to the surviving victim, he appeared to be young black, slenderly built, and over 6 feet tall. His last known killing was in April 2021. All of his victims were strangers walking alone between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. It is believed that the perpetrator of the kidnappings is still roaming the streets to this day. Number 3. Charles Ng and Leonard Lake. Charles Ng and Leonard Lake are another example of a duo involved in criminal activities. Born in Hong Kong, Ng moved to the United States from Canada on a student visa and met Lake in 1981 through a survivalist magazine ad. Both had connections to the Marine Corps but were discharged for various reasons. Lake, diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder, was medically discharged in 1971 after a breakdown in Vietnam. Ng was arrested for theft of weapons, facing court-martial, but managed to evade that fate. However, he was not dishonorably discharged until 1984, after serving time at the U.S. Dispensary Barracks. Upon meeting in 1980, they found they had much in common, and Lake invited Ng to share a family cabin near Wileysville, California. Lake even built what he called a dungeon adjacent to the cabin. Over the following year, they collaborated in criminal activities against various individuals. In 1982, federal authorities raided their shared mobile home in Ukiah, confiscating a substantial cache of weapons and explosives. Lake was released on bond but fled. Ng was returned to Marine custody, where he served time before being discharged in 1984. Their illegal activities resumed, but Ng's propensity for theft led to their capture on June 2, 1985, after stealing an item from a San Francisco store. While both were questioned, Lake ingested a cyanide pill and passed away before charges could be filed. Ng remains on death row, and together they have murdered 11 to 25 individuals. Number 4. Dale Hosner and Samuel Dietman. Dale Hosner and Samuel Dietman, a nefarious duo in their early 30s known for serial crimes, went on a rampage for nearly 15 months from May 2005 to August 2006 in Arizona. Both frequently under the grip of methamphetamine, they would capriciously ignite objects and cruise around, targeting pedestrians and animals, particularly dogs and horses, with firearms. The criminal spree concluded when a series of informant tips linked Hausner and Dietman to the offenses. So many individuals provided tips that Paul Penzone, the head of Phoenix Police Department's Silent Witness program, had to augment his team threefold to manage the influx of calls. Penzone proclaimed, "Make no mistake about it. Evil exists in this world. Hosner embodies that evil. He explained that the terror-stricken community lived in dread, with an intensity so palpable it could be cut with a knife. Ron Horton, a friend of Dietman, reportedly claimed Dietman confessed to some murders while inebriated. At Hosner's trial, he was convicted of over 80 felonies in one session and received 6 death sentences. However, he took his life before execution. Dietman was given life behind bars with no chance of parole. The duo was suspected of murdering 8 and wounding 29 individuals. Intriguingly, just weeks before his capture, Hosner, acting as a boxing photojournalist for Ring Sports and Night News, interviewed the famed Mike Tyson. Number 5. Israel Keyes, like Hosner and diatoman Israel Keyes, would murder at random. In fact, Keyes had what he deemed as murder kits hidden all throughout the United States, in case the opportunity for him to kill arose. His crimes were committed between 2001 and 2012. He had successfully linked to 3 murders, but is suspected of committing more than 11 others. Similar to many other serial killers, Keyes started out by killing animals when he wasn't required to do so to provide sustenance to his family. At least on one occasion, he skinned an animal alive in front of other churchgoers. It is believed that Keyes murdered his first victims between 1996 and 1997 around Colville. As he grew into an adult, he committed several essays and enrolled in the military when he was honorably discharged after a few years of service. He did not admit to killing during this time in the Army, but he did admit to assaulting 2 women after his discharge. He moved to Washington and later Alaska, where he started a construction business. He has also owned property in New York. He admitted to committing 4 murders in Washington, 1 while in New York and 1 in Alaska. In addition, he is the suspect of a series of 2017 crimes committed by the Boca Killer near Boca Raton, Florida. He was caught by authorities after demanding ransom after killing one of his victims, and the police were able to track withdrawals he made from his account. As he moved around the country, Keyes was eventually arrested in Texas on March 13, 2012. He was later extradited to Alaska before Warrior's trial. Keyes told investigators that he wanted to be executed within a year. However, he would ultimately end himself on December 2, 2012 in his cell. He left behind drawings of 11 skulls, which many believe represented his 11 victims, and a pentagram. His demise left many questions unanswered and cases unclosed. Number 6. Robert Hansen, the next serial killer, also has ties to Alaska. Robert Hansen, aka the Butcher Baker, had a minimum of 21 victims and many other cold cases that are suspected to be linked to him. Like many others on this list, Hansen was said to have a hard childhood. Namely, he was said to be shy, had bad acne, and stuttered for the cruel treatment he suffered growing up. Hansen wanted revenge. He seemed to distance himself from his old life as he grew into adulthood. He would leave his hometown state of Iowa, join the military, and eventually open a bakery in Anchorage, Alaska. Although he appeared to be just a simple, humble baker, Hansen clearly had a darker side that he concealed from members of his community throughout the 70s and early 80s. Hansen would prey on adult workers and dancers. He would bring his victims to his cabin and set them loose in the dense Alaskan wilderness.
He would hunt me down and kill me.
Then, after giving them some time to run and hide, he'd hunt them like they were animals. Fortunately for one of his victims, she was able to get away. She was found running frantically down the street, handcuffed and barefoot. She was picked up and safely returned home. She went to the police and told them that she escaped while Hansen was preparing the plane he was planning to load her into and fly to his cabin. She provided a description of him, mentioned his stuttering, and identified his plane.
He told me he was a fine, outstanding businessman.
Although Hansen fit what she said perfectly, police were still hesitant to bring him in, as he was considered a beloved member of the community. When approached by the police, Hansen said that he did know her, but she was setting him up because she didn't want to pay the large fee she charged for her services. A friend of his backed this up, and he was released. However, as more women started to disappear, the FBI got involved eventually, and a profile of the murderer was developed, which of course Hansen fit the T. They said he was an avid hunter and had low self-esteem and a stutter with a history of being rejected by women after obtaining search warrants. Hansen's home plane and car were searched of note. They found a map marked with 24 tiny X's, some of which matched the locations where bodies were found. They also discovered jewelry which was said to be the souvenirs that he kept from the victims in 1984. Hansen confessed to murdered 17 women. He was sentenced to 461 years plus life. Without the possibility of parole, he passed while in custody in 2014. Number 7. Shawn Grate. Again, like so many on this list, Shawn Grate was said to have had a troubled childhood. His mother left the family when he was 11, and he was said to be depressed as a teenager in total. Grate murdered a minimum of 5 people, including 2 of his ex-girlfriends and 3 other women in Ohio between 2006 and 2016. As to his 2 ex-girlfriends, Grate wrote a letter to a news station claiming the motives for the crimes were the government assistance that took his victims' minds. Grate was arrested on September 13, 2016. He entered a plea of not guilty, but later pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity.
I ask you maybe forgive me. Find in your heart someday. I know not today.
However, after psychological assessments, it was determined that he was sane. The story is a little confusing from there, but Grate was found guilty or pleaded guilty to his crimes.
This mess, I'm sorry for all human beings.
And he was sentenced to death. As of now, his execution is scheduled for March 19, 2025. The method of his execution is still undetermined as lethal injection isn't used in the state anymore, but the law does not currently allow for any other method to be used. Number 9. The Doodler. Between 1974 to 1975, this unidentified serial killer is thought to have murdered between 6 to 16 people. 3 people were lucky enough to live. He was given the nickname of the Doodler, aka the Black Doodler, because he would draw his victims before killing them. It is said that he would target homosexual men. He was also said to be a black man between 19 and 25 years old, 6 feet tall, and with slender build. Police questioned a man as a murder suspect in the case. But the 3 surviving victims did not want to out themselves by participating in court proceedings. The man never admitted to the killings, but police thought it was highly likely that he was the one responsible to date. No one has been apprehended or named publicly. Number 8. Tex Watson Charles. Tex Watson was a central member of the Manson family led by Charles Manson. He, along with 2 female cult members, murdered the pregnant actress Sharon Tate and 4 others on August 9, 1969 in Los Angeles. The next night, Watson, this time with 6 other members of the cult, traveled to the Los Feliz neighborhood and murdered Leno and Rosemary LaBianca in October 1969. Watson reportedly knew the cops were after him, and he fled to Texas, his home state. However, on November 30, 1969, he was arrested. He was eventually extradited to California, after which he said to refuse to talk and eat. As a result, he lost 55 pounds and began regressing to a catatonic state. He was admitted to a hospital for 90 days, but was found competent to stand trial after that.
Sometimes I feel I'm scared to live. Living is what scares me.
Following his trial in 1971, Watson was convicted of killing 7 people: Tate, her unborn child, the 4 others in her home, and the L.A. Biancas. He was also convicted of 1 count of conspiracy to murder. He was sentenced to death, but after the passing of People v. Anderson,
fulfilling that real need for love and acceptance.
All Californian death sentences imposed prior to 1972 were invalidated. Number 9. The Alphabet Killer, New York. The Alphabet Killer was named as such because all his victims had first and last names that began with the same letter: Carmen Colon, Wanda Walkowitz, and Michelle Mazzina. Aside from the commonality, the 3 victims were all girls between ages 10 and 11, considered to be on the short side of their age, and were found in Rochester, New York. Their murders took place between November 16, 1971, and November 26, 1973. The only evidence of who the Alphabet Killer might be a composite drawing of a man seen in one of the victims, Mazzino, prior to her death that was created and distributed. The murders of the girls sparked national public outrage. There have been many people that authorities have suspected to be guilty of the killings, but no one except for the man himself knows who he is. Number 10. West Mesa Bone Collector. This killer is thought to be one person acting alone, or several people connected to a group of some kind, whatever or whoever is responsible. The remains of 11 women were found in 2009 in the desert of Albuquerque, New Mexico. The killings were committed between 2001 and 2005. The victims were between 15 and 32 years old, and most were Latina. Several of them were also involved in adult work and drugs. No official suspects have ever been named in connection with murder number 15, the Zodiac Killer. When talking about unidentified serial killers, it would be foolish to leave out probably the most infamous one in recent history, like Jack the Ripper. The Zodiac Killer sent cryptic messages and other items surrounding the murders he committed to the police. The Zodiac claimed to have killed 37, of which 5 had been confirmed people in total. It's believed that most of his crimes were committed in the late 1960s in San Francisco and Napa Valley. Several suspects have been brought forth, but no one has ever been apprehended.